We've all been there, right? That feeling of constantly running out of time, that pressure, that frantic race against the clock. But what if that's not the only way to live? In this deep dive, we're going to explore our relationship with time itself and a really profound idea, that a lot of our anxiety comes from a mental prison that, well, we've built for ourselves. And more importantly, we're going to look for the key to unlock it. And that brings us to the one big question that frames this whole thing. Are you playing in time, or are you playing with time? You know, one feels like you're trapped on a treadmill, a life of constant pressure. The other? It feels like a creative dance, a life of presence. As we're about to see, the difference between these two, well, it changes everything. So let's really dig into this distinction. Because honestly, getting the difference between these two ways of being is the very first step to changing our entire relationship with ourselves and with the world around us. It's the difference between feeling trapped by life and feeling totally free within it. It's the whole ballgame. Okay, let's break this down. On one side, you've got playing in time. This is described as feeling compressed, rushed. Time is this constant weight on your shoulders. You're completely identified with a personality. This idea of me that's always got to achieve, always focused on the finish line. Life is a race. But on the other side, you have playing with time. And this is a state of pure creative freedom. You're in a state of flow. You're actually enjoying the process. Things still get done, but it happens without that heavy feeling of a doer forcing it. Life stops being a race and turns into this incredible game you can actually enjoy playing. So, what is this trap really made of? Why do so many of us feel stuck playing in time, feeling anxious and hurried? Well, the core idea here is that we're actually running from something. An unexamined part of ourselves, a kind of shadow me that we refuse to turn around and look at. And to really get this, the source material gives us this powerful and surprisingly simple analogy. So, let's explore this core analogy. It's the story of a small child and its own shadow. And I know it sounds simple, but it just brilliantly illustrates our relationship with the unknown parts of our own mind. It's a story I think many of us will recognize on a really deep gut level. Picture this. A little kid, maybe just learning to walk, sees its own shadow for the very first time. Its brain can't yet connect that dark shape on the ground to its own body, so it registers it as something separate, something unknown. And what does instinct tell us about the unknown? Danger. So the child gets scared and does the logical thing. It tries to run away. But of course, the faster the child runs, the faster that shadow chases it. And this creates this terrifying, panicky feedback loop. And then comes the turning point, the big moment of change. An adult, a parent maybe, sees what's happening. They gently stop the child, turn them around, and guide their little hand down to touch the shadow on the pavement. And in that instant, a connection clicks in the child's brain. The fear just vanishes because the unknown has become known. What was absolutely terrifying a second ago is now this source of incredible fun and play. This is such a perfect metaphor for our own inner work. Finally turning around to face the very things we're running from. Okay, so if we have this powerful metaphor of the shadow, let's get into the nitty-gritty. How is this shadow self, this tight constructed idea of I, actually built in the first place? How do the walls of our mental prison get put up, brick by brick? The source material gives us two blueprints to look at. The first one is external. It's the cultural programming that tells us who we should be and what we should want. The second is internal. It's the mental map we build in our own heads to try and make sense of reality. Both are incredibly powerful, and both lay the bricks for our prison. Let's start with that cultural blueprint. Now, to understand this cultural blueprint, the source points to a model from the philosopher Ken Wilber. And don't worry about all the terms. The key takeaway here is actually pretty simple. Our inner world isn't really as private as we think. Look at the our culture quadrant. This is all of our shared values, beliefs, morals. This collective programming gets downloaded right into our individual interior, what we experience as our own personal feelings and thoughts. The source gives a great example. A devout Christian probably isn't going to have a nightmare about a demon from Islamic folklore, and a Muslim probably won't dream of a Christian devil. Why? Because the very content of our minds, even our fears, is shaped by our cultural software. So a huge chunk of what feels like my personal dream or my authentic desire is really just an echo of a collective script we were handed. That's the first brick in the wall. All right, the second blueprint is our own mental model of the world. And this brings us to this absolutely crucial idea from a field called general semantics. The map is not the territory. It sounds a little abstract, but it's simple and profound. Our idea about a thing is not the thing itself. Our mental picture of reality is just that, a picture, a simplified map. It's not the rich, complex, messy reality itself. And a fascinating experiment just illustrates this perfectly. The philosopher Alfred Korzybski was giving a lecture, and he passed out some cookies to his students. They all ate them and were saying how great they tasted. It was only after everyone had finished that he revealed the label on the cookie package. They were a brand of dog biscuits. Instantly, some of the students felt sick. They had this powerful, negative physical reaction. But think about it. What actually changed? The taste of the cookie was the same. The only thing that changed was their idea of the cookie. They were reacting to the label, the mental map, not the actual taste of the treat. This chain of abstraction is the exact mechanism for how we build our own suffering. Let's just walk through it. First, something happens in the real world. Second, our senses only pick up a tiny little piece of that event. Third, our mind slaps a label on it, a word, a judgment, a story. This is good. This is terrible. This isn't fair. And then finally, we have this big emotional reaction, not to the raw event itself, but to our own label. We end up living inside a world made entirely of our own conclusions. That right there, that is the very mechanism of the mental prison. So, if that's how the prison is built, how in the world do we get out? How do we stop running from that shadow and finally turn around and touch it? This next part is all about that turning point, the path to freedom, where that shadow can finally become a friend. You know, the path to freedom often starts in a surprising place, with a stage the source calls cooling off, or asthenia in Russian. This is a phase a lot of us might experience as, say, burnout or just disillusionment. The old goals, the things that used to drive you, they just lose their spark. And you might think, oh no, what's wrong with me? But the insight here is that this is not a failure. It's not depression. It's a vital clearing of the old programming. Your system is literally resetting itself, making space for something way more authentic to bubble up. And this clearing process lets you develop a crucial new skill, the ability to tell the difference between pain and suffering. They sound the same, but they're not. Pain is an objective signal. It's a pure, raw signal from the body, an objective piece of information. Suffering, on the other hand, is the extra psychological layer we pile on top. It's the story that the I tells about the pain. It's the difference between thinking, there is a sensation of pain in my leg, and thinking, oh no, I am in pain, this is awful, what if it never gets better? All that extra fear and resistance, that is suffering. So, here's the key. When we can just watch these thoughts, these labels, these stories about I pop up without getting all tangled up in them, and without judging ourselves for having them, that's it. That is metaphorically touching the shadow. We finally turn around and see that the scary thing that's been chasing us, the anxiety, the fear, the identity, it's just a projection of our own mind. And fear gets replaced by this calm curiosity and a really deep sense of acceptance. And this recognition, this profound shift in how you see everything, it just opens up a completely new way of being in the world. We've come full circle to our original question, but now we have an answer. This is what it means to live in a state of flow. This is what it feels like to finally play with time. So what's this flow state like? Well, life isn't a frantic race anymore. We can call it doing without a doer. Things just happen through you, spontaneously, effortlessly. The joy is in the process itself, not some imaginary finish line. And what about that personal I, that tight little knot of identity we've been talking about. It doesn't just vanish. Instead, its job changes. It becomes a useful tool. The analogy is perfect. It's like a pen you use to write a letter. You need the pen, it's essential, but you would never for a second think that you are the pen. And this, ultimately, is the great freedom we're talking about here. It's a fundamental shift. You stop defining yourself by that running commentary in your head, the story of me, my past, my future, my problems, and instead you start to just rest in the simple, direct, always here experience of just being. That's freedom. That's playing with the shadow, playing with time, and being fully creatively alive to life as it actually is, right now. And so, this whole deep dive leaves us with one powerful question to take with us into our own lives. Looking at the story of you, what shadow are you still running from? And what do you think might happen if you finally just stopped, turned around, and reached out to touch it?